Chapter 8, Part 1. The Road South. The morning air was cold and clean, threaded with salt from the distant sea. The group moved quietly along a narrow road, the kind that once connected sleepy villages before the world fell apart. Grass grew thick through cracked asphalt, and birds called overhead in the leafing trees, sounds of life, oddly out of place after the dense silence of the vale. Katrine walked with them now, the only one from Jorte who had made it to the meeting point. She hadn't spoken much, but her eyes were sharp, scanning their flanks with quiet focus. There was something steady in the way she carried herself, and Maja seemed to take silent comfort in her presence. Tomasz took the rear while Jens led the group forward. He walked with purpose, every step informed by memories of these lands. Back in 2024, he said to no one in particular, "I drove this road every day. My office was 15 minutes that way." He pointed to the east, toward the tree line. "Always thought I'd retire before I ever saw these places again." Tomasz grunted in response, eyes on the trees. The thick forest on either side of the road felt more like a corridor than a path. "It's quiet," he said. "Too quiet." Jens nodded. "It's not like Poland. There are people here, just not many in the open." Katrine adjusted the straps of her pack. "They're wary. Faubourg used to be a dead zone after the bomb. Rumors say people who settled there either starved or were taken." "And now?" Maja asked. "Now?" Katrine shrugged. "Now there's talk of a rebuild. Fresh wells. A council. Maybe even a school again." They walked on for hours. The sun was warm when it hit the road, but most of the time they were in shade. Occasionally, they'd pass signs of others. A red circle painted neatly on a door. A yellow one on a stone wall. No black circles yet. That was good. At one point they found a wooden post with a hand-painted message nailed to it. "To Faubourg, south, 25 kilometers. Travel quiet. Avoid roads at night. No firelight." The fog of the vale was long behind them, but the warning clung to their minds. Every crack in the branches, every rustle in the underbrush turned their heads. They stopped around midday beneath a collapsed power line tower. Tomasz pulled out a piece of dried meat and passed it to Maja, who tore it in half to share with Katrine. Jens crouched with his map. "2 more days at this pace," Jens said. "Maybe less, if we find a cart or someone willing to trade a ride." Maja looked up from the ground. "What if we don't like it there? What if it's just another place pretending to be different?" Tomasz leaned on his knees and looked at her. "Then we keep walking." They moved on, spirits a little heavier. The landscape began to open up, the trees giving way to wide, rolling hills. They saw fences again. Real fences, not ruins. Some looked new. Solar panels too, sitting clean and tilted toward the sun, harvesting quiet energy from the sky. They passed a small farmhouse with a yellow circle painted neatly beside the door. A teenage boy watched them from the window but didn't wave. By late afternoon, they began to see more signs of recent activity: dirt tracks, animal droppings, and the faint scent of wood smoke carried on the wind. Civilization. Not a city, but something forming. As night crept in, Jens led them to a small grove near a stone wall. "We rest here tonight," he said. "One more day and we'll reach Faubourg." Tomasz nodded. "We're close now." No one lit a fire. They lay on their backs, staring through tree branches at the night sky. Stars blinked gently above them, the same ones that had watched over them in Poland, through war and fog and fire. But here, somehow, they looked a little brighter. Chapter 8, Part 2. The storage facility in Faubourg was unlike anything they'd seen in years. It stood like a beacon of order amid the patchwork city, a colossal structure of steel, smart glass, and quiet humming infrastructure. Once a warehouse for machinery, it had been rebuilt and repurposed into a central distribution hub, efficient, pristine, and well-guarded. Cameras tracked their movement from above. Drones buzzed silently near the ceiling like dragonflies, watching without intrusion. Inside, rows of autonomous loaders moved between towering shelves, each loaded with supplies, food kits, clothing modules, furniture crates, and equipment stamped with the crest of the regional council. People milled about, quiet but not tense, mostly settlers like them, trying to rebuild. Their footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as they followed the intake officer. The woman's uniform was a crisp blue with silver trim, her badge reading Elena Sorensen, logistics allocator. She walked with the efficient confidence of someone used to order. "Step right through here," she said, guiding them to a recessed alcove at the rear of the structure. "You've been cleared for 1 residential selection and 1 primary power unit. Based on your intake profile, you're eligible for category A housing. Congratulations." Tomasz raised an eyebrow. "We didn't expect this. Any of it." "You earned it," she said simply, tapping on a nearby console. "The system doesn't hand out charity, it rewards stability. You made it through. You stayed together. That counts." A massive interactive wall came to life, an illuminated map of Faubourg, split into zones and grids. It pulsed gently with color-coded overlays: green for clear zones, blue for expansion areas, yellow for mixed-use sectors. Red areas were still marked hazardous, ruins left from the old city, likely riddled with radiation or unexploded ordnance. Maja stepped closer, awed. "It's beautiful." "There," Kasia pointed, "near the school. See that? Those houses are close. That road. Is that a bike lane?" "It's a clean zone," Alina confirmed. "School has 2 teachers. You could be the 3rd. We've had 6 applicants, but no one with your credentials yet." Kasia nodded slowly, overwhelmed but determined. "We'll take that one." Alina tapped the screen. A small ping confirmed their selection. 14 Svias Vage, claimed. "You've got 3 rooms, functioning water and sanitation, and sealed wall heaters. It's ready for habitation, but feel free to personalize. Welcome home." They stared at the word for a moment. Home. None of them said anything for a few seconds. It was Maja who broke the silence. "Do we get a key?" "You get something better," Alina said with a smile, walking them to a new console. "Power." Another display lit up with available energy units. Most were familiar: solar bundles, microturbines, old hydrogen converters, but in the center sat something sleek and compact, a matte black capsule with soft blue lights and embossed alloy casing. Novacell MK3. Portable micro-fission power unit. Output: 1.2 megawatts. Duration: 40 to 50 days. Weight: 12.4 kilograms. Compact. Refuelable. Alina turned to them. "It's not standard. This is part of a pilot program. Only about 200 of these were made. You're lucky." Tomasz stepped forward, running a hand just above the surface of the case, hesitant. "Where did this come from?" "Fusion Labs in Bergen," she replied. "It harvests stabilized radiation from low-grade isotopes. Fully shielded. No emissions. You'd need a military breach code just to open it. You don't mess with this, you just let it run." "And after 40 days?" Jens asked. "You return it for refueling or exchange," Alina said. "Do not throw it out. Do not sell it. Do not attempt to dismantle it. The consequences for misuse are severe. That said, it will power everything in your home: heating, cooking, lighting, uplink, water pumps, even agricultural tech if you get assigned a vertical grow unit later." Maja looked at Tomasz, who nodded. "We'll take it." A robotic arm slid the Novacell into a secure black carry case marked with bright yellow symbols. Jens took it with a quiet grunt, the weight more emotional than physical. "Before you leave," Alina added, "one more thing. There's a color marking system on homes here. Red circle on the door means it's free for use, anyone can enter. Black circle means it's condemned or dangerous, don't go near. Yellow means it's occupied or claimed. You'll find yellow paint in your starter kit. Use it before nightfall." "Got it," Tomasz said. "Thanks for everything." "You're welcome," she replied. "And welcome to Faubourg. It's not perfect, but it's something we built ourselves. Good luck." As they stepped out of the dome, blinking in the evening sun, they stood for a long moment, just looking at each other. The sea was in the distance. The roads were clean. Somewhere ahead was their new house, with its own address, its own walls, and its own future. And in the black case, power enough for a beginning. Chapter 8, Part 3. "Wait! Hey! Wait!" They turned to see Alina jogging toward them, her hand raised, breath visible in the cool afternoon air. She reached them just as they were about to round the corner toward their new street. "I almost forgot," she said, slightly out of breath but smiling. She held out a folded slip of paper. "Your clothing voucher. 2 sets each at the thrift store, everything clean and properly tagged. You'll find it just across from the school building." Tomasz blinked, accepting the slip. "Thank you." Alina grinned. "Welcome to Faubourg. Try not to look like war ghosts forever, eh?" They chuckled softly, and she gave them a quick wave before turning back toward the administration block. The thrift store was easy to find, a squat building with large open doors and racks of clothing organized by size and function. An older woman with a bright green armband on her coat greeted them at the entrance. "You're the new ones from the north," she said without asking. "Come in. We've got everything from boots to soft socks. Don't be shy." They moved through the aisles slowly, picking their sizes, comparing fabric textures. The clothes were clean, folded, and orderly. It felt ceremonial, choosing new skins after years of dust and blood. Maja ran her hands over a soft woolen sweater before hugging it close. Jens chose a sturdy jacket, worn but solid, with pockets in all the right places. Kasia picked plain clothes, but allowed herself a scarf, light gray, almost elegant. Tomasz stared at a dark blue shirt for several long moments. It looked almost like something he would have worn to work, long ago. He took it. Later, When they reached Sveaasvach again and entered their assigned home, the quiet held a new promise. The house welcomed them with dry walls, solid flooring, and silence that wasn't threatening. The red circle on the door was now a freshly painted yellow, courtesy of Jens, who made a neat ring with steady hands. Inside, there was still dust and age, but not decay. They found a shower in the small bathroom, narrow but functional. After checking the water heater connection to the newly installed Novotel MK3, Tomasz ran the tap. It took a few moments. Then hot water, real, steady, clean, streamed down like a miracle. They took turns. Kasia went first. When she came out wrapped in a plain towel, her hair wet and steam rising from her shoulders, she looked stunned. "It's strange," she whispered. "I forgot what clean feels like." Maja followed, taking her time. She sang, softly, the first time they'd heard her do that in months. Jens emerged last, freshly shaved, smelling faintly of something like soap and machine oil. Tomasz took the longest. He stood under the hot stream and let the grime of years slide from his skin. The scars on his back and arms were still there. The weight in his chest still real. But it no longer clung to him like sweat and fear. It washed away. For the first time since the slavers, since the fire, since Poland, he felt human again. Dressed in their new clothes, they gathered in the kitchen. Kasia reheated a sealed meal pack from their welcome box, lentils and grain with rehydrated vegetables, surprisingly good. The lights cast a soft glow across their clean faces. Maja curled up with a blanket near the Novotel's quiet hum. Jens leaned back in a chair with a small cup of tea made from real leaves. Kasia had already begun organizing the books in the hallway shelf. Tomasz stood by the window again, his new shirt fitting snugly across his shoulders. Outside, the city was calm. A pair of teenagers walked past, laughing. A delivery cart hummed by on silent wheels. Somewhere, a dog barked once and was answered by another. He exhaled slowly, then turned to sit with his family. No alarms, no running, no fog. Just warmth, cleanliness, light. It wasn't everything, but it was enough, for now. Chapter 8, Part 4. A new rhythm. The air in Faubourg felt almost unnaturally still after everything they had gone through. Not the silence of dread, but something closer to calm. Civilization had a sound, not the whir of drones or hum of machines, though those were present, but the rhythm of people moving with purpose. It had been years since Tomasz had felt that. After their shower and a quiet dinner in their new house, the group stepped back outside into the dusk. The Novotel MK3 had already begun supplying energy to the home. Warm lights glowed from the windows, and the heating system kicked in with a low, steady hum. It was simple, efficient, and it worked. That in itself felt like a miracle. Maja looked around the quiet street. "It feels strange," she said, "to be here, with lights on. Real walls. No fog." Jens adjusted his coat. "I keep expecting someone to tell us it was a mistake, that we have to go back." But no one came. Instead, the neighbors, a pair of older women, waved politely from across the road, and one called out, "If you need anything, there's a food exchange down by the old church. Don't be shy." The group thanked them, and after a short pause, wandered further into town. They passed freshly built homes, neat gardens, and even a public kiosk screen mounted on a steel pole. It listed community events and public notices. A sign on the corner read, "Welcome to Faubourg, rebuilt together, stronger than before." "It almost feels fake," said Maja softly. "Like a movie set." "No," Tomasz said, shaking his head. "It's not fake. It's just what happens when people stop running." They reached the central square, where a small crowd was gathered around a street musician playing a handmade string instrument. Children darted between benches. Someone laughed. Real laughter. It was almost too much. The teacher, Anna, stopped and stared at the refurbished school building just off the square. Fresh white paint, solar panels on the roof, legacy tech still used in parallel with newer systems. She turned to Tomasz. "This is it. This is where I want to be. I'll ask about teaching tomorrow." He smiled. "I think you'll be good for them." Their feet eventually brought them back home. The night was quiet, but not dead. Voices drifted from windows, a distant engine hummed somewhere, and a light breeze rustled the leaves of young trees planted along the curb. Inside the house, the heat was steady and the water pressure reliable. They made a final cup of tea and sat by the window. Maja wrapped herself in one of the fresh blankets they'd been given. "I don't know if I'll sleep tonight," she said. "You will," Jens murmured, already leaning back in his chair. "For once, we all will." Outside, Faubourg breathed gently. A city once wiped off the map, now stitched back together with quiet determination. Tomorrow, they would begin figuring out where they fit into it. Epilogue, Spring 2065. 8 months had passed since the group crossed the Little Belt Bridge and began a new life on Funen. Spring had returned, and with it, a fragile sense of peace and renewal. Blossoms swayed in the breeze, the scent of blooming apple trees drifted through the air, and sunlight warmed the red roofs of Faubourg's newly rebuilt homes. It was no longer a ruin. It was a community being reborn. Tomasz and Katrine. Tomasz stood at the edge of the small garden behind their house, a spade in his hand and sweat on his brow. He smiled as he glanced toward the open window where Katrine stood brushing her long auburn hair. They had grown close over the past months, sharing more than survival, hope, warmth, and a future. Love had come quietly, like the first thaw of spring. They now lived as a couple in a modest but well-maintained house near the school. Tomasz had joined the Community Defense and Training Council, where his military experience was invaluable. He taught strategy and discipline to the local watch, not as a soldier but as a mentor. Katrine, once the last survivor of Jorte, found purpose again helping organize food logistics and coordinating village communications. She had found strength in community and had become a quiet pillar among the people. Maja. Maja had turned 15 in February. In Faubourg, she was safe for the first time in years. The trauma of the past still clung to her in shadows, but she was healing. She had started attending school again, where she surprised many with her sharp intellect and hunger for knowledge. She loved biology and had taken to spending hours by the coast collecting samples and drawing sketches. Her teacher often said she might become a doctor, or a marine biologist. In the evenings, she sometimes sat with Tomasz and Katrine, listening more than speaking, occasionally offering her own thoughts on the world. The bond between her and Tomasz had deepened. He was no longer just her father, but her protector, guide, and friend. Kaya. Kaya, the rescued girl, now 17, had taken the hardest road of them all. When they first arrived, she barely spoke, but with time, patience, and care, she began to rebuild. She had chosen not to return to her blood family and instead forged her own path in Faubourg. She worked at the community greenhouse, learning to cultivate rare plants and food crops. She had developed a quiet friendship with a young man named Elias, who had been raised in Faubourg. They often worked side by side in the greenhouse, their conversations sparse but meaningful. Kaya was still wary of touch, of closeness, but she was healing, slowly, beautifully, on her own terms. Jens. Jens had become somewhat of a local legend. The man who had once patrolled the roads of Denmark and led a group through the Vale now spent most of his days training younger citizens in map reading, navigation, and situational awareness. He was given an honorary advisory position in the town's regional planning council. He lived alone but visited Tomasz and Katrine often. In private, he sometimes admitted he missed the quietness of the road, but he also admitted he was too old for wandering. Faubourg suited him. "I've seen enough dust and blood," he would say, lighting a pipe he insisted was just for the smell. Elena. Elena had returned to teaching. Her classroom was small but vibrant, filled with handmade posters, donated books, and laughter. Her warmth had found its proper place. Children adored her, and she had even started a weekend story circle for young ones. She and Maja had grown especially close, with Elena becoming a kind of aunt or older sister figure in her life. She shared a small cottage near the sea with 2 other teachers. Though she had once spoken of returning to Poland, she had since decided that Faubourg was her home. The community. Faubourg continued to grow. Powered by a mixture of wind, wave, and Novotel energy units, the town had become a symbol of renewal. More settlers arrived every month, some from the north, others from as far as Germany. New homes were built, a clinic opened, and an arts cooperative began to take shape. The town's leaders, while firm, ensured fairness and safety. The Vale still loomed far to the east, a scar they all remembered, but no longer feared. Here, life wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about living. And for the first time in decades, spring didn't just bring green leaves, it brought a sense of belonging. This was The Rough Road Back, written by Kim Staal, copyright 2025, all rights reserved. Thank you for listening.